Up next on VIC, New One, it's the place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs, that's Miller, Vicari, and Passante. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The MVP show where you need to be. Sports radio on VIC, that's MVP. Sundays on VIC, that's MVP. Sports
Here we go, people.
Radio, VIC.
It is the MVP show, live on Selection Sunday, here in the VIC Radio Studios. What a theme. Never gets old. We're only 3 weeks into playing it, but it never gets old.
That was electric.
I'm John Vicari alongside
Brennan Miller.
And Dan Passante.
And boys, we have a lot to talk about today. A huge weekend in terms of college basketball, and of course, as I mentioned in the open, today is Selection Sunday.
Sure.
And pretty much like every year, there's a lot of anxiety for people in this part of the country, in this part of the state, in New York State, because, as always, Syracuse is in the mix, but it's not confirmed. They're always on the bubble. They're always a little bit.
Yeah.
They're always, they could be in, but also this team could be in if they slip up. And I think if you're a listener to the show, an avid listener, which, if you're tuning in, that is what you're considered.
Thanks, man.
But you know my stance with Syracuse athletics. You know Brennan's stance with Syracuse athletics, and maybe you know Dan's to some point, and that he's pretty much in the middle on this. He grew up a big Syracuse fan, but that fandom has faded over time in terms of, I guess, passion. Like, obviously, the Bills rank higher, this and that. I don't think, as currently constituted right now, that Syracuse has done enough to make the NCAA tournament. Will they? Brennan, will they? Sure, probably. But this is how I want to look at it, right?
So
you look at their net ranking, which is good, Brennan. Their net ranking is 40.
Very good.
That's a turning team if you just look at the net ranking.
Top 64.
True. You look at the Quad 1 record. So the Quad 1 is just based on, and there's a whole thing you can look on NCAA.com, but it's pretty much, it's a 1 through 25 team in the net ranking you play at home, and then a 1 through 50 neutral, and then a 1 through 75 road. So if you play the 75th best team in college basketball on the road, that's considered a Quad 1 game, right? Just for full context. Syracuse is 1-7 with their only Quad 1 victory coming against Virginia Tech.
Yes.
They're 6-1 in Quad 2, 6-1 in Quad 3, and the most important one, in my opinion, because it was the dagger in the heart for my St. John's University team, Quad 4 record for Syracuse, they are 3-0. So no losses there, no pitfall.
Win the games you're supposed to.
What was that?
So just winning the games you're supposed to.
Absolutely. But you look at Syracuse's resume and the Quad 2 and the Quad 3 losses. There's 2 losses to Pittsburgh in there, which are You played Buffalo really close, and now Buffalo, to give them credit, they made the MAC tournament championship yesterday and fell to Ohio. But a close loss to Buffalo. I'm not going to count Bryant against them. Bryant's a very good team, and they beat them only by 1 point, but that was the first game of the season, and Syracuse was coming off a quarantine, and it was a whole thing. So I'm not counting that, Brennan. You count it as a win. I'm not going to knock them there. I'm not going to knock them, right? A loss versus Duke, a loss versus Georgetown, which looks way better now than it did when it happened, because Georgetown is now Georgia Tech. They actually have a win versus Georgetown and a win versus Georgia Tech. 2 conference champions, by the way.
Yeah.
So they literally have 2 wins that they're still good wins, but now they're better wins or were quality wins because Georgetown, which we'll get to a little later, a great run in the Big East tournament, and then a victory. But there's no signature win in here, Brennan. There's no signature win. You can call Virginia Tech a Quad 1, okay? You could, and then the Big East tournament, they did what they had to do versus NC State. And they played Virginia really well, Brennan.
Yes, they did.
They showed that, all right, if they are put in the tournament, it's not going to be a mismatch. They're not going to be upset. But they don't have that signature moment of this year. They just totaled enough games that they look okay, but there's never that, in my opinion, there's not that signature win. There's not that commanding victory. There's not that evidence that shows that Syracuse deserves to be in the NCAA tournament over this team. I'm going to give you a team. Wichita State, right? 16-5.
The Shockers.
They lost in the semifinal of the American versus Cincinnati. Probably the worst loss of their season. And right now they're the first team out and Syracuse is one of the last 4 in. Wichita State's 16-5. One of their losses, Oklahoma State, who are now the Big 12 champions, very close, and a loss to Missouri. And Missouri's an SEC team that's going into the NCAA tournament. They're going to make it as an at-large bid. So those are quality losses there. And then a win versus Houston, who's the 6th team in the country, 6th ranked, and a loss. They split that because they're in the conference. And people forget this too. Early in the season for Wichita, they beat Ole Miss, who's on the bubble. So I look at Wichita State, who only has 5 losses overall, and in their non-conference, played well. Beat an Ole Miss team, played an Oklahoma State team, played a Missouri. And I look at Syracuse, and I say they didn't challenge themselves out of conference, and obviously COVID, and there's different ramifications with that. But their conference schedule, where you're supposed to get those signature wins that boost their resume, they didn't. They just played Virginia really tough, so we're going to give them a shot at it. We're going to give them a slot in. And this is all, too, before you go on to your point. This is all my point. I think they're going to get in, and you could make an argument that they're going to get in. That's what, Brennan, you're about to do.
You're correct.
But they're only getting this look over Wichita State because of name value, not because of how good the team actually plays.
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's 100% true. I think that when you take a look at, and you did say, they don't have any signature wins. I think they had a signature week leading up to the ACC tournament. You played, and hear me out here, you played a very good Clemson team who was going to make the tournament, and then you played, and you beat them, and then you play and beat a North Carolina team that, while it's not the North Carolina team that we've seen in the past, it's still North Carolina, and a team that is also going to make the tournament. So I think you have 2 wins over tournament teams there at the end of the season before you get into the ACC tournament to make it a signature week and not maybe a signature game. Obviously, not beating Virginia in the ACC tournament hurts, but again, that was a very close game that literally came down to the last shot. So I think that Syracuse is a team that has proven that they can compete with everyone that they are set up to play against. Will they win the tournament? Probably not.
No.
Will they go in a Syracuse-esque run and make it to the Final Four go from the bubble to the Final Four because that's what Syracuse tends to do every year? Probably. And people are going to get upset about it. And then I'm just going to be sitting here very, very happy with myself because Buddy Boeheim is just cashing out from beyond the arc. And that's what they do. And that's what they are. They're a team that hits a lot of threes. And when you're a team that hits a lot of threes, that means you're dangerous in the tournament because that's obviously, and I'm going to say it obvious here, but that's how you score more points, by hitting threes, and that's where the game is going. There's a lot of teams that can dominate the Cuse inside. They don't have a lot of big men. But the play of the forwards has been much better at the end of the season than it was at the beginning of the year. And Buddy Boeheim has been hot the last 3-4 games where it's dangerous from beyond the arc. So I think that they're a team that can compete with anyone that they play against.
Yeah, and that's something to, I think, in the positive column for Syracuse, the way you finish out a season, because finishing strong does matter. It does. When you look at the resume, they have, and just this is for other teams, I would say, but you could look at early season victories, and they're not the same. You look at late in the season when everyone's focused in, not to say that those early wins don't matter, but Syracuse has stepped up their game when it mattered most. Again, these games that you mentioned versus Clemson, versus North Carolina, they're not quad one. They're games at home. They're games a tournament team, in my opinion, should win. And also, and this is to your point too, because am I of the full belief that Syracuse, if they get in, and they would probably get in playing that first 4 game on True TV and to start the tournament, it'll be them versus Drake or versus Wichita State or versus Utah State, all these other teams that are on the bubble. Will they probably make a run? Sure. But I think it's a lot of people doing what you just did, Brennan, where you assume that they're going to make the Sweet 16 just based on history, and let's put them in there. Where that's not how it should be valued. It's the same argument we do with Notre Dame in football. You put Notre Dame, even though this year they're record matched up, but a lot of people didn't want them in originally because we know what happens when Notre Dame gets in the college football playoff. They falter. So there's this bias that you have going in. I think it's reverse for Syracuse, and I understand why they're going to get in.
John, so I feel good about it.
Of course. And believe me, if the shoe was on the opposite foot and St. John's didn't lose in quad 4 to DePaul and could beat Seton Hall and all this is rhyming, but I'm angry about that. I would hope you were rooting for St. John's, and I was debating this way. They should be in. Okay, they lost to Marquette, but look, they beat Villanova. They beat Creighton. Again, my point comes down to signature wins. And Dan, I definitely want your thoughts on this, but is it more Cuse getting in the bias that we've seen with the committee and just, all right, they're always in, they always make a run, so let's honor that? The same thing happens for Duke, by the way. This isn't just an upstate New York thing. Or is Syracuse this season an NCAA tournament worthy team?
Well, there's a lot of teams this year that are typically NCAA tournament teams that are not. As we look at the top 25, we see Gonzaga, Baylor, Illinois, Michigan, Iowa. I can go on all day, but the names you're not going to see are Duke, you're not going to see North Carolina, and you're not going to see Kentucky. That doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen every year, but this is a very, very, very weird year. You know, the fact that there is a game Syracuse was supposed to play on February 17th that got postponed. That's not something that we typically see during an NCAA season, and that's not the only team and not the only game that's been postponed, not even for Syracuse. But in a year that's so weird like this, I just feel like since we're having the discussion, we might as well just put him in. It's such a weird year. I don't even know. I mean, maybe if there wasn't a pandemic going on and men's basketball was able to go throughout, maybe we'd have a better idea of who was good and who wasn't. But I feel like the fact that Syracuse played really well in their past few games, going all the way back to February, they beat Boston College, Notre Dame, they beat North Carolina and Clemson, and NC State twice, I believe. That's some, they're getting, I guess, kind of hot at the right time. Might as well put them in just because, I mean, like I said, this year, this is a weird year. And also, Syracuse is a weird team in the tournament. They might do something fun. I mean, again, you know how I feel about college basketball this year. It's just like, is this really happening? But at the same time, I don't know. We'll see how it goes if they get it.
You realize with this argument that I have to now root for Iona, and everyone's going to be rooting for Syracuse around this place, and I'm gonna have to deal with that. Are you factoring my emotions in this?
that's another calculation I have to make. Honestly.
Yes, no, but and Dan, that's a great point too in terms of just how you look at this season. But I feel like every team's gone through that. At least, I'm sure there's different numbers of postponements and different numbers of COVID cases per team, and some teams were struck with in the beginning of the season, which was Syracuse, and then other teams like we saw in the conference tournament, Virginia, Duke, and Kansas all were impacted by this when it matters. Obviously, Kansas is getting in the tournament this year, and so will who I'm blanking on it, not Duke, the other team I just mentioned, Virginia. Virginia will get in, but again, I feel like this is an obstacle everyone overcame. Will Syracuse get in? Yes. Though you're going to be on the edge of your seat watching Selection Sunday. Because it's not a given.
Absolutely.
It's not a given. And especially yesterday, you're watching, and this will sort of segue into our next topic, though we're going to take a break. But you're watching yesterday, Brennan. Can't have Georgetown win. They do.
They do.
Can't have Oklahoma State win.
They do.
They do. So you're just sitting there. Are you actively, or what are your emotions, and are you actively rooting against some of these underdog things, and because it's going to affect Syracuse possibly getting it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at like the teams that are on the bubble like that, especially Georgetown, I mean, and this is a whole other discussion that we've had, not on mic, but is Syracuse versus Georgetown a rivalry? And
this is a great.
I say absolutely. And
no.
I would root against them regardless. Mm-hmm. But of course, you love to see the underdog story, and you love to see someone come and take just kind of steal a bit away. But when that might be Syracuse's bid, then we have an issue with it. But hey, we're all looking good now. We got no issues. Cuse should be in the tournament. Should be, I say.
Should be.
Yeah,
we'll be probably.
We'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned. Not concerned. I am excited to watch you cheer for a Rick Pitino-led Iona Girls.
Who else am I going to root for? Comment below. Put it on the YouTube chat. Write it on Twitter. Who am I going to root for? I'm going to root for Rutgers? I got no New York teams. Colgate didn't do what they had to do. The Patriot League wasn't won by a New York team. Colgate, Army, right?
Right.
I got to root for Rick Pitino? All right. So that's us on the Syracuse Deserve a Spot. We want to hear your thoughts, of course. Just mention the YouTube chat, on Twitter as well. take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little more college basketball, go into the Big East tournament, as well as a quarterback who got a big payday. And I'm sure you heard ad nauseum this week, but we'll give it a little time as well, just not 93% of the show, Skip Bayless. But we will talk about that. You're listening to the MVP show on VIC Radio Ithaca.
Missed that last song? Want to check out our music blog? Well, then log on to www.vicradio.org. See our daily schedule, take a look at our wide selection of specialty programming, and learn more about our annual 50-hour marathon. That's vicradio.org, your online home for the best of what's next.
At VIC, the voice of Ithaca College, we prioritize diversity and inclusion. We are working to ensure that more voices are heard.
Am I allowed to like our
We
tweet on
support
the
and will
MLBIC Twitter?
continue to support the Black
know,
Lives
that's why I was
Matter
like,
movement and victims of police brutality and racial injustice. We've heard you. We support
Exactly.
you.
I didn't
We
want
must
them to be like, why'd you
advocate
do
for
that?
change. Black lives
Up next
matter.
on VIC.
Well, that blended
The one, it's the
interestingly.
place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs. That's Miller, Vicari, and Passante. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The
All right,
MVP show where
Pat
you
Ewing,
need
here we
to
come.
be. Sports radio on VIC. That's MVP. Sundays on VIC. That's MVP. Sports on radio.
Here we go.
VIC.
Welcome back to the MVP show on VIC Radio Ithaca. John Vicari alongside Brennan Miller and Dan Passante. And we just talked a little Syracuse and possibly going into the NCAA tournament. They most likely will. And we're going to talk a little more college basketball, but not so much the X's and O's, even though we will get into that with the Big East tournament. But the main takeaway for me with the Big East tournament was, of course, Patrick Ewing. Typically with college basketball, because you don't know the players year in and year out, especially with the one-and-done rule, they're in and out in terms of their tenure in college, and there's not a lot of four-year seniors, this and that. So obviously, with the Big East tournament, the big storyline was Georgetown, the 8th seed, winning it all. And they're coached by Patrick Ewing, and a great story. They won it all. But after Thursday, which was their upset against Villanova to show that, oh, they're here, Georgetown's here. After pretty much a lackluster regular season, they beat Villanova, who it's a different Villanova team than that's been the entire year. They, at times, were a 1 seed, and the 2 seed probably will go in as a 3 and 4 because they lost some key pieces. But nonetheless, Georgetown with big wins. But after that upset, apparently, Patrick Ewing was stopped by Madison Square Garden security, personnel, and not specifically, we can't go into specifics, but I'm sure it was, oh, can't go in this way, got to go in that way. And Ewing addressed the media and addressed this situation, saying, I thought this was my building. I feel terrible that I'm getting stopped, accosted, people asking for passes. He's got a point. He's Patrick Ewing. He also went on to say, what the hell is this Madison Square Garden? To which I'd answer, it is. But people bringing this into such a big deal that Patrick Ewing got stopped in Madison Square Garden, and Spike Lee went on ESPN First Take and he said, can you imagine Derek Jeter being stopped entering Yankee Stadium? Magic Johnson being stopped entering the Staples Center. Michael Jordan, the GOAT, that's his words, not mine, being stopped entering the United Center. First off, we're in a global pandemic. So, if it was normal time, Patrick Ewing could do whatever he wanted in Madison Square Garden in terms of entryway, this and that. He's known. It's his building. He knows the insides and outs. He played there his entire basketball career, and he's been there for multiple Big East tournaments. Remember, this is his 4th year at Georgetown. But parameters and protocol are different than different in a pandemic. That's the way it works. I don't know the specifics of how it happened, but this is an MSG personnel security person who probably does not care that a college basketball tournament is happening. Sorry, folks, not everyone's tuned in to who these people are. They're there to do a job, and they're told by their boss, hey, players, fans, coaches can't go in this area, can't do this, or you have to direct them this way or that way. It's just somebody doing a job. That's all this was. People making it out to be that the Garden is incompetent and Dolan is incompetent and all this malarkey. it's a COVID-19 pandemic, and there's certain protocols you have to follow. And it wasn't Patrick Ewing wasn't wearing a mask or not doing this and that. It was just the normal way he probably is used to getting to somewhere is different now, just because of the situation's different than MSG. Is it bad optics, which is a word I love a lot? Sure. It looks bad. All the headlines. Patrick Ewing stopped at MSG. Patrick Ewing coming off a huge upset win has to deal with, random people telling him, oh, can't go here, can't go here. Yeah, bad optics. Does MSG have a history of this? Yes. The man who we mentioned on First Take and was just completely taken aback by this, Spike Lee, he went through the media entrance for 28 years, and then one game at the Garden, they told him, oh, you can't do that anymore. The whole Oakley situation. There's bad history there. But to pretend that Derek Jeter being stopped entering Yankee Stadium and Magic Johnson, that never happened during COVID. I'm sure Derek Jeter, in terms of following COVID protocol, if you return to Yankee Stadium for Old Timers Day, which is a separate topic and is not going to happen for a long time, in my opinion, if there's certain protocols to make everyone safe, Jeter's going to follow them and maybe be upset with it, or, oh, he can't go here, can't go there. But I don't think he just had free reign and be able to do whatever he wants. Am I wrong here? I think everyone's just blowing this up for no reason at all. And it's fun to talk about. I think people just like slamming the Garden, but people have a job to do. That's my thing. And I don't want to over serious this, because I think Ewing didn't. He made a big deal, but it wasn't like he kept talking about it as Georgetown advanced in the Big East Conference. But this isn't an issue for MSG, in my opinion. It's bad optics, but I don't think they were in the wrong here.
I mean,
am I wrong?
No, I don't get.
Let me know.
The thing is, I think there's two sides to this coin. Where yes, people are just doing their job, but at the same time, Patrick Ewing is what, 6 foot
7'2".
7'2". Are you serious?
Everyone's tall there, though.
7'2".
He's 7'2", right?
Wow. Yeah, he is.
Everyone's tall there. It's a basketball tournament.
Right. 7.
Not to generalize, I'm just short, but everyone's pretty tall.
Right. You're okay. That's fair, but at the same time, 7'2" is 7'2". I don't know.
And of course, he's wearing a Georgetown quarter zip. He's wearing, he's with the basketball team, or he's, you could take an educated guess that he works for the team and is part of the college. But again, these people, the people, and I'm not trying to say security people don't care. There's people who work at MSG who are lifelong fans, and there's people who don't know who's playing that day.
Right. No, and I think that's true, where people, it's a job. A job's a job, especially when it's a security job, because a lot of those guys or those people are hired out anyway by First, but at the same time, big man.
So you just let any tall people go wherever they want? Well, is that how it works?
No, I think that there's a special exception made for when it's the man who called that place home for X amount of years. Yeah, I think it's just tough. It's a very slim middle ground, and to be honest, it's kind of an absurdity that we're even talking about it. In my opinion, where it's like, yeah, okay, he got stopped at the Garden, whatever. Like most people would be stopped. But I mean, at the same time, he is Patrick Ewing, and then he did play there for a certain amount of time, where you'd think that he'd be pretty recognizable. I would assume, and I've only been to the Garden once, and it was for a hockey game, but I would assume that there's probably pictures of him on the wall,
of course,
somewhere where this man is legendary in the place, and then he can't even,
There's pictures of Mark Messier. You don't think people just see him as a normal bald dude?
Well, basketball and hockey are a little bit different.
Well, I'm just saying. I would say Mark Messier is more important in Madison Square Garden history than you.
Important, maybe. Prominent, I wouldn't say so.
I was just going to say that when people ask me, are you a journalist? I say, no, I'm a sports journalist.
Yes.
Because this story...
Yeah,
I mean, I understand. I guess I know why we're talking about it, because it's Patrick Ewing and he said something in the media. But Pat Ewing, there's a pandemic going on, man. I don't know if you knew about that. But that's probably why I would say you can't go in the building. I just love the media surrounding this. Like Pat Ewing's like, do you people know who I am? That's the only soundbite that's really going on here. He was a great Nick. And more people in the Garden should know who he is, if that's the point that New York wants to make. But apparently they don't. And I'm sorry for that, Pat Ewing. I really am.
Yeah. And again, is it more funny than serious?
Right.
Sure, but everyone's blowing for. Oh my goodness, the Garden's incompetent. No, they're doing a job. They're doing a job. Yeah. Big East tournament, but it does not take away either, by the way, from Georgetown's really historic run in this Big East championship. First conference win since I believe 2006 was the year. They had a great run, and everyone pretty much scoffed at them. They had a terrible season. I mean, they came into the conference tournament 2 games under 500.
Lost to Syracuse.
Yeah, they got swept by St. John's in their season series. Not a great resume, but they won when it mattered, and now better for the Big East. Yeah, better for the Big East. 4 teams are in now: Georgetown, and then Creighton, UConn, and Villanova for at-large bids. So at least you get more representation there. Before we go to break, we'll go a little into this, a little Dak Prescott, and that was what we teased going into our first break, and he got paid. Yeah. He got paid. I'm sure you heard ad nauseum. That's why we don't want to spend too much time on this. I think we do have to talk about it and just laugh at it, honestly. He signed a 4-year, $160 million deal, $42 million per year. That's what it's going to be. Only second behind Patrick Mahomes, who's making $45 million a year. So it shows where he ranks in terms of the money. 126 of those $1 million guaranteed. No trade clause and a no tag provision is in there. Prescott's 27 years old, young guy, but of course coming off that season-ending injury. And another note with this is the highest signing bonus in NFL history. $66 million signing bonus. And all I have to say is, one, it's about time because this has gone back and forth between Jerry Jones and Prescott's camp in terms of them negotiating the money. But I'd say, one, Dak's camp won, and 2, he's not worth this money at all. I think I rank him higher than a lot of people do, where a lot of people think he's worse than he is. He's a good quarterback. Maybe in the next couple of years, top 10. I think he's right now in that 15 to 10 range. Maybe you guys disagree, but I think that's where he is. He's not worth $42 million a year.
I mean,
I've seen this man play.
I think what we're forgetting is the fact that franchise quarterbacks are very, very difficult to come for. And he was the 8th, and I only know this because it was in my sportscast, WICB radio director. He was the 8th quarterback taken in the 2016 draft, and since he joined the Cowboys, in the games he started, or in the games he's played, he started every single one, and has led the Cowboys to a winning record in every season that he has been the regular starter. I think that is invaluable. I like the value here. Are the Cowboys going to have a very difficult time trying to, squeeze the contracts of Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott and, whoever they have in the defensive side of the ball as well, who has massive contracts? Are they going to have a hard time squeezing all that under the cap? Absolutely. But I think that a quarterback is invaluable. And whatever you're going to pay for a quarterback, someone else is going to pay more. And if he were to hit the open market, there would be a team willing to pay more than the Cowboys just paid him. Yes.
I don't understand it. Dan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, let's look at Dak Prescott's best season that I have pulled up right now. When he had 4,000 yards in 2019, he had 30 touchdowns that year. He was sacked 23 times, 388 for 596 in attempts. I don't know what that really means in the grand scheme of things. Thanks, ESPN.com. But, I mean, is Dak Prescott going to give the Cowboys a great chance to win in the regular season? Yeah, sure. In the playoffs, I don't know about that yet. If I was another team right now, if I'm an owner, I would say to the Cowboys, what are you doing? Because now I have to pay my quarterback more because you're paying Dak Prescott more. Yeah, they're really driving up the market here. Again, I don't know if Dak Prescott is really going to be the Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Cowboys. I mean, I don't know if he's really shown that yet. But if the Cowboys are happy with where they're at and they think that they can add pieces to him, I understand wanting to keep him around, certainly. But I definitely think that $40 million is a lot of money for him.
Can you imagine putting your name on a piece of paper and just getting instantly $66 million?
It's a good feeling.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Good feeling. And of course, like, the market always dictates. Eli Manning at one point was the highest paid quarterback. Matt Stafford. Wow. A lot of people Thanks.
Well, how we got there?
A lot of people obviously have had it that maybe you wouldn't designate as the best quarterback in their time. But again, On paper, this doesn't make sense, but hey, as a Giants fan, I applaud it because I'm not worried.
No, you're not. You don't think you're gonna have to overpay Daniel Jones?
Well, no. Oh no, I'm worried about that. I'm just not worried about Dak staying in the NFC East for 4 more years. That doesn't keep me up at night.
Really?
So, no. Hey. I'm worried. You want to hear the quarterback I'm most scared about? Jalen Hurts. Philly. It's a wild card, man. He played well. He did,
yeah.
And if anyone's gonna make him good, it's the Philadelphia Eagles.
I'm not sure if that's true.
I think it is.
I don't know. I feel like the Eagles don't have much around them. But I'd be concerned. Like I said, Dak Prescott has led the Cowboys to a winning record in every single season that he's been a starter. And right now, who made the playoffs of the NFC East? I forgot.
Washington football team.
And they were 7-9.
Yes. Yeah. Heineke almost beat the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers.
Right.
Actually, Washington played Tampa the closest.
Right. You're correct, and it was a slight dig because Tampa Bay team did beat my Packers.
Of course, yes.
But no, I mean, like I said, Dak Prescott has led the Cowboys to a winning record every single season he's been a starter, and the winning record wins you that division, gets you in the playoffs.
Yeah. No, it does.
The Giants still, man.
Dude. Yeah, man. I didn't attack your team. Oh, wait, I did.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
All right, we'll be back. Lots to talk about. We'll talk about a media rights deal that came to the forefront this week. I think it's huge for the sport. We'll debate it. Of course, our MVP of the week. And then we'll pick the remaining conference championships that are left in college basketball and will be played today. You're listening to the MVP show on VIC Radio Ithaca.
At VIC, the voice of Ithaca College, we prioritize diversity and inclusion.
Oh, yes.
We are working to ensure that more voices are heard. We support and will continue to support the Black Lives Matter movement and victims of police brutality and racial injustice. We've heard you.
But if we do want to skip it, I can just skip it really easily.
We must advocate for change. Black Lives Matter.
I got it there.
La la la. I love to ride my bike so I can feel the wind through my hair.
Hey kid, wear a helmet!
No, wait, Grandpa, because then I'm looking like an idiot.
Whoever made it, the sound is great. It's just like, oh my god, I can't wait to listen to the message.
The majority of bicycle deaths are due to head injury.
Can't wait for our happy intro to come out here.
50%. Don't be a dummy. Wear a helmet.
Next up, it's not even one, it's the place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs, that's Miller, Vicari, and Passante. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The MVP show where you need to be. Sports radio on VIC, that's MVP. Sundays on VIC, that's MVP. Sports Talk Radio, VIC.
MVP show is back on VIC Radio. We've talked a lot of college basketball, dove into some football as well. But now I want to give a little time to the NHL because they signed a major media rights deal with the worldwide leader, ESPN, a 7-year rights deal between NHL and Disney Company. Will be through the 2027-28 season. The Stanley Cup Final is going to be on ABC for 4 of those 7 years. And 25 exclusive national regular season games will be on ABC or ESPN. 75 national regular season games will be produced by ESPN and put exclusively on the ESPN Plus app and Hulu, as well as half of the playoffs will be on ESPN ABC. The All-Star Game and the Skills Challenge and any other special events, which I would think is the Winter Classic, but there wasn't specifics on that, just special events. ESPN themes back, which is huge. They already promoted that, so there's no, unless they don't use it, but they've used it in all their ad and marketing campaigns, so you would think that's the theme they're going with. A great theme for NHL. You listen to that, and it just feels like hockey. This has been mostly associated with the college hockey tournament and the Frozen Four because that's the only hockey rights that ESPN's had. As I mentioned, the theme, also new talent's probably going to be brought in as well. And overall for the NHL, it means... Apply. What was that?
We should apply.
Of course. Absolutely.
I'll take a job.
Absolutely. But it's huge for, I think, for the NHL, ESPN, more exposure, a bigger, sorry NBC, but and NBCSN, but ESPN in more households than NBCSN. ESPN in more households than NBCSN, a lot of letters there. But they are. and it's more exposure, and there's something to, ESPN cares about hockey for some people. It just is. Does it completely not negate the last couple of years where ESPN didn't really treat hockey like it was a major sport? That's debatable. That's just the way they program it. You could slam them, you could not. They feel hockey's of some level of importance, and they talk about it to that level of importance. Would it be hypocritical if First Take starts debating McDavid versus Ovechkin? Yeah, I think so. If they start doing that, would hockey fans love it? Absolutely. I mean, Kellerman has gone on First Take saying hockey doesn't matter, and Stephen A. Smith, passes it to his man Don Juan LaGreca in his terms of who he gets his hockey knowledge from. But overall, I think this is a big move in terms of more exposure for the NHL. More exposure for the NHL, more eyeballs, and hopefully a new fan base that will be developed. ESPN viewers, even if you get a percentage of it, people who don't watch hockey who will be brought into the hockey fold, which is big for the sport. The negative of this, of course, is this ESPN Plus subscription that you're going to have to get. Because 25 of these games, as I mentioned, are going to be national ESPN ABC. 75 are going to be produced by ESPN National, but exclusively on ESPN Plus. So hypothetically, Brennan, if the Rangers and the Islanders play, and it's one of these ESPN Plus designated broadcasts, it won't be on MSG. It won't be on MSG Plus with the Islanders because they're the same network. It will be found on ESPN Plus. You're going to have to pay that subscription. You're going to have to pay ESPN Plus $5 a month if you're a hockey fan.
Yeah, and I think this, it's not just ESPN that's doing this. I think that
the
NHL is terrible at scheduling their games, where, they'll put scatter games out like hour by hour, so you can't actually watch all the games that are going on, which obviously is an issue in itself. But when that is the case, you have to have someone to put it, and ESPN Plus is where it is. But I mean, when you look at NHL and this rights deal, I think it's huge because we talk about the four major sports in the U.S. and it's baseball, football, basketball, and hockey. Hockey is the one that you kind of put last, and it kind of has the asterisks. And when people talk about the MLS coming up and professional soccer, they talk about it jumping hockey because hockey is kind of the least or has the least exposure out of all of the sports like that. So I think getting it on ESPN is going to be absolutely huge. Like you said, more people are going to watch, and when more people watch, obviously the brand continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. If the NHL was a stock, I would buy a week ago because I think then I think that the league itself, I think with more exposure, just continue to grow.
Maybe more people like me who have a basketball problem will be hockey fans, and I think that would be cool because hockey is fun. I also can't wait to hear Stephen A. Smith talk about what a bad man Connor McDavid is. That's going to be hilarious, especially because we all know he doesn't know anything about that.
He's trying.
He does try. He retweeted the SNL sketch that Chance the Rapper did, where he's pretending to.
It's pretty much the only culture that NHL has that they've held on for 3 years now. Like they keep bringing out Chance and promote because that's it. That's the only mainstream thing they had. Luckily, SNL was like, we'll do a sketch about someone who's a basketball reporter for the Knicks on MSG, and he has to fill in for hockey because that person had a baby or whatever. That was the whole story, and Chance is like, I have no clue what's going on. And it was funny. But that's literally, and that sort of plays the NHL's problem too. That's the one piece of pop culture that they keep just overplaying because they have nothing else. So, and that's an issue in itself. I don't know how, I wouldn't expect NHL to be debated on First Take on a regular basis. I think in the first year of this media rights deal, it will probably be a lot of NHL highlights on SportsCenter and a lot more exposure, or just feel like it's a lot because what it was before was virtually nothing. But it won't be, especially in the couple years after, it won't be the way they treat the NBA, the way they treat college football. Not even from a bias standpoint, just from the money they're given. This media rights deal, it's somewhere in the north of what, $600 million, I think, around there.
A lot of money.
They pay $1.5 billion for the NBA.
Yeah.
They pay a lot of money to the NBA, as well as the NFL, and they get absolutely, in my opinion, destroyed, and they're renegotiating it to ESPN's credit. But for a while, it was just, Monday Night Football, you had that first playoff game, give us a lot of money, where CBS, NBC, and Fox were getting better value, but that's a separate discussion with the NFL. But I don't expect the NHL to permeate ESPN's complete brand, but the fact that it'll be talked about more, the fact that theme's back, And not to spoil my MVP of the week, but the fact that there might be some old talent returning to ESPN is, I think, a step in the right direction and good for the sport.
Absolutely.
And we don't know either if NBC is going to retain the other rights because they'll get the other package, which would be a lot of playoffs and the Stanley Cup the years that ESPN and ABC doesn't have it. NBC's the front runner right now. Fox could always jump back into hockey. They had hockey in the late 90s when ESPN had it. And then after both those contracts expired, NBC, and at the time it was Outdoor Network or whatever, and then changed into Versus and then became NBC. They jumped in. So you could see Fox return as well and go half in with ESPN, ABC. It'll be interesting to see. But overall, I point out some negatives, but overall, NHL, ESPN, good combination. All right, another great segment. This is our MVP of the week, boys. I think a week where you could pick a lot of things. I know where Brennan's going with this in terms of, I mean, it's sort of been a pattern over the last couple of weeks. But this could be anything in sports, news, entertainment, pop culture, someone or something that we thought had a great week. Dan, I want to start with you.
Well, I think that my runner-up MVP this week has to do with the fact that the Grammys are being held tonight at 8 p.m. And Elton John, who is an icon, came out and said he will, quote, hit someone if Phoebe Bridgers does not win a Grammy. So stay away from Elton John in case that does not happen. But I think my MVP today, we have to go back in time, people. Today is 314. It is Pi Day. My MVP of the week has to be Archimedes of Syracuse, the mathematician who discovered pi, and he is from a place called Syracuse. Now, I don't know if it's the New York one, but no, I doubt it. I doubt it. He was alive in BC times. He's the one who discovered pi. Today is Pi Day. From the Wikipedia page I read before this show, it was invented by the ancient Greeks, so thank you for pi. Celebrate Pi Day, everyone. It's a really ridiculous holiday, and I love the fact that it exists. So, Archimedes, good job, man. I have no idea what that number means or stands for or what it can do, but thanks for the pie.
Mm-hmm. It's just a good day to eat dessert.
Right? It is. It really is. Yeah.
I'll go next. Mine is, and it has been, as John said, a theme over the last few weeks, but the fan-controlled football league.
Yes.
Yesterday, we saw Josh Gordon and Johnny Manziel finally play together. And Manziel was just, dropping dimes to Gordon. It was absolutely beautiful and a absolute reminder of how good they could have been had they been able to stay in the NFL. Money Manziel, Josh Gordon, what a connection. Browns teammates reunited on the Zappers. And the cool thing about the Fan Control Football League is that every week the teams are just shuffled. Like they have a draft every single week. And teams can claim like one or two players specifically to hold on to for the entire season, but other than that, everyone is like up for grabs. And these two guys, I don't think anyone claimed them as like their franchise players is what it's called. So they can go at any team at any time. And finally, they were on the same team. Finally, they had a connection. I'm not sure what their stat line was from one to the other, but I just love watching them play in the Fan Control Football League. It's my favorite thing going right now.
And they're in the playoffs. They're in the FCF.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. My MVP of the week, it connects to the NHL, which we talked about, and it's Gary Thorne, because Gary Thorne says, and I quote, "I'd love to talk to them about it." That's coming back to, great quote, that's coming back to the NHL. He was the voice of the NHL throughout the 90s and the early 2000s when the NHL was on ESPN. After NBC got the rights, Gary Thorne was not a part of that, and he's been the Orioles announcer for the majority of the 2000s. No longer. He's with Baltimore as of right now. He's 72 years old. Bring him in to do hockey, ESPN. Do it. He's the voice that people know. He called the 94 Stanley Cup between the Rangers and the Canucks on MSG. He's a part of a lot of hockey history through the 90s, which was a great era, as well as the early 2000s. He's a voice that people know. He was on the NHL video game for a long time until, of course, NBC had more of a presence and negotiated with not negotiated, EA Sports just brought them more into the fold. But for a lot of people, they grew up listening to Gary Thorne playing NHL games. His presence in hockey is vital. Bring him in. That's my one advice, because if the booth, and this is no shock, because I think Steve Levy and Barry Melrose are going to be probably the A booth for the NHL on ESPN, and that is a very, very good one. But Gary Thorne is regarded as the voice of hockey for ESPN. Steve Levy was number 2. He was number 2 back in the day, and I'd have no problem with him being number 1. But make an attempt to go get Gary Thorne, even if it's just a year or two, and he retires. Obviously 72. It's not going to be. It could be the majority. What the deal is until 2027, but you would think no, or only a part of that. But so I would bring in Gary Thorne. But my MVP of the week is the fact that he's interested, because that's huge for hockey, and he's great. Emmerich's still a GOAT, but Emmerich's retired, so give me Gary Thorne if you're ESPN. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will give you our picks for the college basketball conference tournaments that are today. We look at Selection Sunday overall, maybe a team that's going to be on the bubble and not get in. We'll just explore it all. College basketball, if you want to leave questions in the YouTube live chat, anything you want to do. It's pretty much open for last 10 minutes of the show, but we will give you our game picks, which we usually close out the show with, a Sunday game pick segment. This is the MVP show on VIC Radio Ithaca.
Do you like listening to your favorite songs? Well, on We Got It Covered, you'll hear them, if not the originals. From pop to country to classic rock to musical theater and more, there's something for everybody to love.
And we guarantee you'll be surprised to hear which of your favorite songs isn't actually an original. Tune in to We Got It Covered on Thursdays 10 to midnight right here on VIC.
I'm getting a catcher's mitt.
I'm getting ice skates. I'm getting a jigsaw puzzle.
I'm getting dying coral reefs.
A blue bicycle. A walkie-talkie.
I'm getting a severe drought.
Cool black skateboard.
I'm getting melted ice caps.
A killer heat wave. A shrinking glacier.
I'm getting a devastating flood.
Adults are generous. We're even giving kids global warming, but it's not too late. We can still reduce greenhouse gas pollution. Go to fightglobalwarming.com. Brought to you by Environmental Defense, the Robertson Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Up next on VIC.
I don't have the games in front of me.
It's the place to be. Talking sports with the MVPs. That's Miller, Vicari, and Passante.
We're talking about bubble teams.
NFL,
I'm ready.
MLB, NHL, college sports, whatever you need. The MVP show where you need to be. Sports radio on VIC. That's MVP. Sundays on VIC. That's MVP. Sports Talk Radio VIC.
Can't hit that note still.
That's beautiful.
I really can't. This is the MVP show, if you couldn't tell by the song, on VIC Radio Ithaca. Final about 11 minutes left of the program. We're going to pick the conference tournaments that are still left in the college basketball world. Of course, we've had a lot of upsets. Georgetown winning the Big East. You had, I'm blanking on the school now, but Hartford, I believe, won the American East. Okay. Their school that made its first ever NCAA tournament bid. A correction, by the way, from earlier in the program. Colgate is on right now. So after you're done listening to our show, turn on that conference tournament, because it might be another New York team in the mix. I mentioned earlier I'm going to have to root for Iona because there's St. John's is not in, either Iona or Rutgers. Colgate's in. I would have no problem giving my rooting and supporting interest to Colgate, and I think they're the favorites in that one. They're the number 1 seed, Brennan.
They are, yeah. And that being said, I'll throw another New York team into the mix here, because there is another possibility, and this is one of our picks in the A10 championship. We have VCU against St. Bonaventure.
Oh, the Bonnies.
The Bonnies, yes.
The Bonnies.
I visited St. Bonaventure. You visited St. Bonaventure too, right?
I did not.
You did not? Who did? Never mind then.
You went to visit it for college?
I did, yeah. Almost went there. Not really. No.
Anywho.
Yeah, anyway.
Okay,
so yeah, the A10 championship game today. Bonaventure is a 3-point favorite. They're very, very good this year, as they usually are. They're usually one of the top teams in the A10. That game is at 1 o'clock, and the Bonnies favored by 3. I like St. Bonaventure. I would take them.
Hey, VCU every year is a team that is amazing. That is it's pretty much a tournament perennial. I mean, they had that run with Shaka Smart, and after Shaka Smart left, VCU every year continues to be a force to reckon with in the A10. That said, can't pick against the New York team and say Bonaventure. Right. Will VCU get in as an at-large bid? Absolutely. They have a great resume, and they'll probably be the 2 teams in the American that get in. St. Bonaventure, if they win, and VCU. I don't think the Bonnies have a good. I'd have to check, but if they lose to VCU, I don't think they have a resume to get in. Hopefully they do. But VCU, in bracketology at least, is one of the last at-large bids to get in. They can guarantee a spot with a win today, but I am picking the Bonnies, St. Bonaventure, and another New York team and another team I could possibly root for.
This is the part in the show where I picked a different team just to be different, but I'm not going to do that. I am also taking the Bonnies because they are in New York State, and we know that VCU is going to be in regardless. So let's go, St. Bonaventure. Are they actually the St. Bonaventure Bonnies?
They are.
Nice. That makes me like them even more. So please win today because yay, New York.
Yes. Game number 2, the SEC Championship. That's Alabama and LSU. Game that we would usually like to see on the gridiron football game, but no, Alabama the 1 seed, LSU the 3 seed, Alabama favored by 6 points. This game is 1 p.m. at ESPN. John.
Yeah, in terms of where I'm going with this, I've not watched much of the SEC Championship. I kept a close eye on Ole Miss because Ole Miss is a bubble team, and their success would have meant it would have been harder for Syracuse and other teams on the bubble to get in. Ole Miss, they did what they had to do, but they didn't go as far or to guarantee a spot. I think if they got one more win, they would have been looked at more favorably in the eyes of the people who make the NCAA tournament selection, the selection committee. That all said, LSU I know has a high-powered offense. They can't play defense. That's what I've heard. I'm just looking through it. I'm picking LSU here. I know Bama's -6. LSU is not the 2 seed, by the way. I believe they're the 3 and had to knock off Arkansas, who will be a 3 seed in the bracket. Yep. So, I don't know. I think LSU's riding high. I'm picking the Tigers. As Brennan mentioned, it would be nice if this was on a Saturday in November, but it's in a Sunday in March.
I'm also taking LSU because LSU right now is 18-8, and that is the same record as the Boise State Broncos, who have had such a fantastic year that need to be in the tournament. As you can see out there in the Mountain West, most of their games were played back-to-back, as in they played Air Force twice, then Wyoming twice in a row, and Colorado State. That's difficult to do in basketball. They finished 18-8. They've lost 4 in a row, though. So committee, look at the season, please. What have they done for you lately? Not much, but put the Broncos in the playoffs. I did not talk about that game at all that I was supposed to pick, but I'm taking LSU.
That's fine. I'm going to disagree with you guys. I actually like Alabama in this one. I think that they're a team that, at this point, I think they got up to 6th in the country, looking at a 2 seed in the tournament. I think they're very, very good, and I think that, I think the 6-point spread is a good one, and I have Alabama. So move on to our next game, the American Championship, and this one, the 1 seed did not make it. It's the 5, Cincinnati, and the number 2, Houston. Houston is favored by 13.5 in a conference championship game. What? That game is at 3:15 on ESPN. Dan, I'm going to go to you first this time.
I'm going to take Houston because last night we got to catch a little bit of that game that they played, and they look really good. Yeah. I have a hard time picking seeing any team beating them after what I saw last night. So that's why I'm going to go with Houston tonight.
When I look at this game, I look at Cincinnati, who knocked off Wichita State, who is a team that I think's worthy of being in the tournament. I know Cincinnati's got Keith Williams because I called him in high school. Very, very good small forward, about 6'5", and just a great shooter. At least he was in high school for Bishop Lachlan. And again, not knowing much about this, the number is, I think, too big for a conference championship. Will I pick Houston in this in terms of game pick? Yes. 13.5's a lot. I know Cincinnati's a 5 seed. I know Houston is top 10 team. A team is really going to lose by that much in the conference championship. We saw it yesterday because Georgetown knocked the doors off of Creighton. It was 73-48 final. I don't know. That number's too big to me, Brennan. I'm always weary of a number like that, especially with the 13.5.
I agree.
They're going to win by 2 touchdowns.
No, I agree. I think that I think it's going to be a closer game than 13.5.
Absolutely.
But I do still think that Houston wins.
Yes.
Absolutely. 100%. They're like you said, one of the top 10 teams in the country. You're looking at 2 seed as an automatic qualifier. If they were to win, I like Houston. I don't like Houston to cover, but that's a conversation for a different radio show. And then we move to the final pick'em that we have, the Big Ten Championship, Ohio State and Illinois. Ohio State's the 5 seed in the Big Ten. Illinois is the 2 seed. The Fighting Illini are favored by 6 points. It's at 3:30 on CBS. I'll go first this time. I like Kofi Cockburn and the Fighting Illini to win this game. I think that Ohio State, while they are probably undervalued, they got cold there at the end of the year where they lost, I think, 4 games in a row to close the season out. Obviously, they've gotten hot in the tournament and made their way to the championship, but I think that Illinois is just too good. I think that Illinois is going to go on a run. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the Final Four once we get a little further on in March. But I think they're a very, very good team, and I think that they take this one probably by more than 6 points.
Kofi Coburn, who you mentioned, and I called him Kofi Cockburn in high school because that's what I was told to call him, and that's not his name. But when he went to Illinois, a lot of people were like, really? Illinois. And they have built a great team.
Yeah.
He was one of the major recruits that they got, and they have built a great team out there. Looking at this Big Ten championship, the one note and one interesting thing for me is that Jim Nance is on the call. Jim Nance will call the Final Four. This is the first college basketball game he'll call this season. It's a pretty good one to start, the Big Ten championship. In terms of pick, I know, I called Coburn, but I called Coburn in high school, so I will pick Illinois against Ohio State. It's been a fun Big Ten tournament. You had Michigan, who's a tournament team, in there, and let's not forget Rutgers. Rutgers is going to be in there, and I think they got destroyed by Illinois, but they did enough in the conference tournament to warrant, and in the regular season as well, to warrant being in the NCAA tournament. But if I'm picking a game, I'm picking Illinois, and I think they're going to go far as well, to Brennan's point, in the overall NCAA tournament.
I think that's definitely a great pick. I think Illinois, we have taken this game a few weeks ago on March 6th, or I think it was last week actually. I watched them play Ohio State, and at the end of that game, Illinois was trailing 68 to something, and the final score is 73 to 68. They shut out Ohio State for the final 3+ minutes of that game. They really do have an extra gear, this Illinois team, and they are fantastic. From what I saw last week, it doesn't surprise me that they beat Rutgers by a lot, and then they also beat Iowa pretty handily by 11 points. They're a great team this year as well. This Illinois team is extremely impressive, and I think they will go far as well in the tournament.
So those are our picks for Selection Sunday, the conference tournament games on this Sunday. And you do like and you do appreciate that there are some games to, that day. You have to, for college football, watch on Saturday and then wait for that next day on Sunday. It's pretty cool. You get to watch some college basketball leading into Selection Sunday. And what's great, too, you watch the Big Ten Championship on CBS. That will lead into the Selection Sunday picks. It is a little fishy because they probably do have the NCAA brackets already selected before these games end, I think, for the most part. Unless it's, I guess with the American Championship where it's like Cincinnati wouldn't get in unless they win this. But I think most of it's already decided. So that's something to look at, too. But it's pretty cool that you get to watch the basketball and then Selection Sunday tonight. That's at 6 p.m. CBS. And we mentioned the other games there on that channel as well. That does it for our show. Just want to throw out a couple of things in terms of programming for Ithaca. Right here on VIC, if you're watching, maybe you're watching on YouTube, but 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., Saturdays and Sundays, you get a lot of VIC radio sports talk, not just our show. You get 12 shows in total, including ours, 6 on Saturday, 6 on Sunday. Half of them are remote, but half of them are in studio, and there's a lot to choose from. If you're a basketball fan, listen to Dribbling Around. If you're a baseball fan, we have 3 baseball shows, so there's a lot out there. So I would give it a listen if I were you, and if you're interested in this show or only listen to this show, check out the other shows that we have on this station. But that will do it for us. For Dan Passante and Brennan Miller, I'm John Vicari. Thanks for listening and watching the MVP show on VIC Radio Ithaca.